While Napoleon was crowning himself Emperor of Europe and the Americas was still grappling with the shackles of colonial rule, a radical experiment in human rights was being born in the heart of Africa. It wasn't just a revolution of swords, it was a revolution of the mind. This is the story of the Sokoto Caliphate, a government that ruled over 1,000,000 square kilometers, not with an iron fist, but with a system of justice so advanced it would take the West another century to catch up. Today, we're going beyond the battlefield. We're re-looking at how a group of nomadic scholars built a merit-based superpower that protected the poor, educated women in remote villages, and created a 19th century internal audit system. The founder of the caliphate, Usman dan Fodio, was a scholar, not a king.
Separation of power. Usman dan Fodio divided the empire into two parts, east and west.
The Hausa city-states that existed before them were notorious for their oppressive taxes, arbitrary justice, and rulers who lived in luxury while their people suffered. Don Fodio's message was simple but revolutionary. Leaders should serve the people, not the other way around. He wrote dozens of books on just governance, ethics, and leadership, laying the intellectual foundation for what would become one of the largest and most organized states in Africa. This wasn't a sudden conquest. It was the culmination of decades of teaching and preaching that a better, more just society was possible. Usman dan Fodio knew that distance breeds corruption. In 1812, he did something radical. He gave up absolute power. He split the empire into two sectors, west and east, creating a dual-core system. The western half was administered from Gwandu, and the eastern half from his capital. Why? Because the palace in Sokoto couldn't hear the cries of a farmer hundreds of kilometers away in Gwandu. By decentralizing, they brought the government to the people. No ivory towers allowed. This wasn't just about administrative convenience. It was a philosophical statement. Power had to be close enough to the populace to be held accountable. Each of the 30-plus local emirates that made up the caliphate had its own ruler, or emir, who managed local affairs. But these emirs weren't absolute monarchs. They answered to a higher authority, and their power was checked by a sophisticated system designed to prevent the very abuses that sparked the revolution in the first place. But his most crucial role was oversight. The Wazir's office sent delegations on long, arduous journeys across the empire. They traveled to all the semi-autonomous emirates to audit their treasuries. Their job They would arrive unannounced, check their financial ledger, investigate tax collection methods, and listen directly to complaints from farmers, merchants, and artisans if an emir overtaxed a peasant or seized goods unfairly. The Wazir's delegation was the legal shield that struck back. This system, known as the Wazir, was the central anti-corruption police force of the Caliphate, ensuring that the wealth of the state served the community, not just the elites. A farmer could work a plot for decades, only to have it taken away on the whim of a local ruler. This created constant instability and poverty. But the Caliphate introduced the concept of a manada atroz. Under the principles of Sharia law that guided the state, all land was ultimately seen as held in trust for God and the community. Your right to use and benefit from that land was protected by law. This wasn't just a policy, it was the African property rights movement, happening centuries before such concepts were codified in modern international law. It gave ordinary people economic security, allowing them to invest in their farms, plan for the future, and build wealth for their families, knowing their livelihoods were safe from the arbitrary power of the state. How do you educate 1 million people without a printing press spread across a territory the size of France and Germany combined? You use egami? Egami is the practice of writing local African languages, like Hausa or Fulful, using the Arabic script. By using this familiar script for local languages, the Caliphate's leaders made knowledge accessible to the masses. Suddenly, laws, poems, and the histories written by the Sultan could be read aloud and understood in every village by the local malam or teacher. And this revolution in literacy wasn't just for men. Nana Asmau, the Sultan's daughter and a brilliant scholar in her own right, launched the Yantaru movement, which means the associates. She created a network of educated women who served as teachers, called Jagis. These Jagis traveled on horseback through the most remote rural areas, carrying books and knowledge into the homes of women who had never had access to formal education. They taught literacy, religious principles, and the laws of the... While much of the rest of the world was still debating if women should even learn to read, Nana Usman, you and the Sokoto Caliphate were already deploying an army of female educators to empower them. The Sokoto Caliphate wasn't perfect. It was a 19th century state and faced immense challenges, including internal rebellions and the eventual encroachment of European colonialism, which dismantled it in the early 20th century. But it was proof of a profound truth. Africa has always had the capacity for complex, merit-based, and compassionate governance. It was a state built on literacy, piety, and the radical idea that a government exists to protect its weakest citizens, not its strongest. Its legacy is a testament to African intellectual and political genius. To the diaspora watching, this is your heritage, a legacy of scholarship, justice, and structure. If you learned something new today, share this video. Let the world know the true history of African governance. Subscribe for more deep dives into the empires that built the world. Thanks for watching.